Hey, welcome back to No Hype Beer Reviews. Very excited for today's beer, as I always am. It's another Treehouse beer. Shocker, I did a run at Treehouse, and I have a bunch of Treehouse beers to review. This one, though, is a little different than beers I've had from them before. Just a little, anyway. It's actually a coffee imperial porter. So I've definitely had some coffee stouts from them, but I don't think I've had Actually, I don't think I've had any porter from them. If I have, I'm drawing a blank. It's called Abstraction Coffee. I don't know if Abstraction, the way the font is, I'm thinking Abstraction might be a coffee, or I'm sorry, a coffee less porter, just a regular imperial porter. Yeah, a regular imperial porter without coffee, and this one's a coffee version because they are two different fonts. I try to go in pretty blind, so I think sometimes people comment with information, which is great after the fact, because beforehand I typically don't look things up, so I don't know if they have Abstraction without coffee. I will look it up afterwards. There's a lot on this side. It's actually hard to read. The letter color choice over the can art is actually pretty difficult to read at times. But basically, it says you're going to get like dark chocolate, coffee, which isn't too surprising. It's 8.8% ABV. It is says a great molasses flood of 1919. So I wonder if this is going to have molasses taste in it. Let's see. It is just under a month old, like literally 2 days under a month old. Let's get into it. Just like how hop flavors can fade, coffee I find can fade. I don't think within a month of being brewed it's gonna be drastically different. Radically or drastically, and then I combine those two words. Drastically. Anyway, I tell you what, I smell some coffee and malt roast for sure. It looks like a big porter stout range somewhere. It's pretty darn black. There's some brown around the edges. The head, small soapy bubbles on the outside. Definitely they're going away quickly, and the teeny tiny bubbles are bursting into small bubbles. A couple small to medium in there. It's probably about a finger and a half ahead when I started. But yeah, I definitely can see some brown at the bottom. I'm kind of finally coming around to the fact that for the longest time, and I think there's still some truth, I think there's gray area, that but I always kind of thought like porters are watery stouts, like typically lower ABV than a stout, and you don't get quite the fullness of a stout. But I definitely had some, within the last 6 months or so, some porters where the lines were blurred a lot more than I had thought. But then also, they have like this extra earth kind of an element that I'm trying to get a better descriptor for. So something like this, that's a porter, an imperial porter, it's 8.8%. I am now going into it expecting it not to taste like an 8.8% stout, which typically beforehand I would have associated more with a stout ABV range. Anyway, let's get into the aroma. Yeah, you know what? And again, I got to get some better descriptors for it. Like I said when I poured it, I get coffee for sure. I get roast. And I don't want to say it smells watery or thin, but it has this like earthy thing that's differentiating it from what I typically get in stouts. But there is like this other thing that I can't quite put my finger on to describe. And it does smell lighter than a stout, but oddly the aroma is pretty present. So the words I'm saying don't quite make sense. But it just, again, I'm really like my word bank on it. I haven't gotten it there yet for like this X Factor thing. But it has that porter versus stout X factor for an imperial porter. When I say earthy, I mean like woodsy, not that it smells like it was in a barrel, but it kind of, this aroma reminds me of like walking in a forest, maybe like after it rained, and you're just kind of getting like this woodsy, outdoorsy smell. It has some of that mixed in with a roast. Yeah, smells good. I'm actually really excited for the taste. Cheers. All right, so I definitely agree with the side of the can. Lots of coffee, lots of dark chocolate, and then the actual like roast from the malts. This does not have chocolate in it, obviously, but it's interesting how those three things, which I think there's a lot of overlap in beer, like a beer like this, where that roastiness can come across. Like if there's no coffee in it, from just the malts, the roasted malts, you could get that beer roasted maltiness. You could get a coffee presence, and you could get that dark chocolate as three separate things. This one, with the addition of coffee, shocker, I'm getting all three, and also pretty good harmony. These three things, and again, there's a lot of overlap, but none is really like way out of whack. I'd be really interested because I am curious if abstraction exists without coffee. How much of that coffee taste is still there from the malt versus an addition of actual coffee here? And then here's that stout versus porter thing. It drinks around, like if I was doing this blend, I probably would guess 9% ABV. There's a little warmth there. The finish is, it's not sweet enough to be like I had a chocolate that had like liquor inside and I'm eating it all like a dark chocolate with liquor inside. It's not that hot. It's also not that sweet. But that's like the closest thing I can use to describe it because there is some warmth there. The alcohol's not, it's not crazy. Not like I just took a shot. But, and that dark chocolate, so again, it's not super sweet, but it's there. So it has this fullness, the short version. It has this higher ABV associated with stouts, but it has this X Factor taste. It does not taste like the forest because when it rains in the forest, I do not eat the bark and stuff on the trees. So, although that's kind of how I'm using the descriptor for the aroma, this X Factor for the taste, again, doesn't taste like it's barrel aged. So I can't really, it's not quite wood that way. Maybe a little bit. Okay, no, I'll take it back. A little there. But there's still like this X Factor. It's not funk, but something else there I'm not quite putting my finger on. Here's the most interesting thing, though, is at the same time, I get a little vanilla note, but I'm also getting this huge absence of vanilla where I'm like, man, if this had vanilla in it, it would be awesome. So I don't know if it's just kind of like my mind's playing tricks on me. Like, dude, how awesome would vanilla be as an addition to this beer with the flavors that are present? Or if I am getting a little bit of like it doesn't have lactose in it. Like what is this hint of vanilla that I'm getting just the, again, I'm saying hint, the teeny tiniest amount that it's in my head like they should put vanilla beans in this. Let me do one more swig and see if I get vanilla specific. Try and get down to the bottom of this vanilla mystery. I think it's just some of that sweetness playing with these other flavors. But I would love a vanilla version of this. I'll say that for sure. I like this beer. Actually, I quite like this beer. And you know what? I did two or three milk stouts of theirs recently. It's nice to have one that isn't a milk stout, but still from them. It's again, it's an Imperial Porter stout. It's nice to do a dark beer from Treehouse that isn't another milk stout. How about that? Coffee's not overpowering, as I said. It's working well with the other flavors. Guys, throw me some descriptors. When you drink a porter or an Imperial Porter, what are some flavor notes you get? And maybe like I can steal someone else's term for it because this X Factor is driving me crazy. If I think of it as I'm drinking this off camera, I'll put in the description below. Also, if you've ever had this beer, let me know. What were your thoughts on it? I'm very curious. Speaking of interacting with each other, check me out on Instagram and Untappd. No Hate Beer Reviews at both those places. So always please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, imbibe. Cheers, everyone.